Hello, everybody. It's Connie Stewart with SimplySimpleStamping.com. Thanks so much for joining me for today's Tuesday tip. In today's video, we're going to talk about some really great paper hacks, 10 to be exact. I know that sometimes when we're paper crafting, we can get a little frustrated with certain things, right? Well, today's video, I hope we're going to end that. These are some really great hacks that are going to help you save money. They're going to give you some new ideas on what you can do with paper, ways you're going to use scraps, all kinds of great ideas. Are you ready to get started? Okay, let's go. My first tip is all about looking at your layers before you adhere things down. So this card here, I thought I wanted to bring in one of my layering circles. Now, normally I probably would have had to go pick out a whole nother piece of Pear Pizzazz cardstock, but look at this. If I remove this layer, let me show you what I've done here on the back. Yes, I die cut my circle from that Pear Pizzazz. It's going to be covered up with the Designer Series paper. And here's the great benefit of this. There's a good possibility that can even help save me money because not only do I use less cardstock, but when I go to mail this card, it could be the difference. That one little extra piece could be the difference between a 1 ounce stamp and a 2 ounce stamp. So yeah, look at your layers before you cut. Look at your layers before you start adhering things together because you might be able to take something away from that. Now here on the inside, not very often will I recommend that you do that on the inside of a card. Like if you have a layer behind that, because this is where we write our message. We don't want a lot of lumpies and bumpies in there. So if you're going to do this technique, really, I would recommend that you do it there from the front of your card. Aluminum foil. Who knew we could do so much with aluminum foil in our paper crafting? Now, I'm going to teach you 3 different ways you can use aluminum foil. And you notice here, we've got 2 sides to our paper or to our foil. You've got a shiny side. There's also the duller side, but you're just going to decide which side you want. And you see, I've just cut it down a little bit bigger than my actual cardstock. Now, here's my next trick. Instead of using a brand new piece of cardstock, look at this. This is a piece that was just, honestly, it was a test, a technique I showed you in a previous video. So I'm not really going to use this, but it's going to be great to use as a background in this technique because no one's ever going to see it. So that card that you messed up on, ooh, save that. It's going to be great when we work with it with aluminum foil. Now, aluminum foil has 2 sides. There's a shiny side and a dull side. I'm going to use the shiny side. So I want the dull side up as I'm working. So it's the shiny side that will end up showing. And here we go, guys. This is so easy. You can see I've got just my little scrappy piece of cardstock there. I've got a border of about 1 inch all the way around on my foil. And watch what we're going to do. We're simply going to wrap this just almost like we're wrapping a present. It's very easy to do. We're just going to wrap down one corner. Just bring it tight over the corner there of the cardstock. You notice I didn't even adhere this down. Nope, this is just that magical. We're going to fold in those corners. And this is where I said it's like wrapping a present. We're just going to take these ends, and you want to make sure you're bringing that down really good and tight around the cardstock, around that edge of the cardstock. We don't want any gaps. And now we're just going to start to rotate that foil, rotate that cardstock, bring in any of those little corners if you need to. Because I want this to remain pretty and shiny, you do want to use kind of a really gentle touch with it so we don't get it wrinkly, but we just keep wrapping. We're going to take this last end and bring it down, crease everything really well, and look what we get. Yeah, we've got this great shiny piece of cardstock. Let me show you what it'll look like if we were to just add that right now onto a card base. Now, of course, we're not going to leave it like this. We're going to add some other embellishments and things, but it really makes for a great background, don't you think? All right, well, let's step this up a notch, shall we? All right, just for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and unwrap this piece because I'm going to show you another way that we can use this. So I'm going to take this aluminum foil and I'm going to very gently start to crush it. We don't want to go crazy because we don't want it to tear, although it is a pretty durable paper to work with, I'm going to smooth out all my rough edges. And of course, if you have any edges that didn't get crunched very good, you can just come in, give those another little crunch, smooth everything out. And we're going to repeat the same process we just did. So we're going to fold down our corners. Everything is going to be like the previous where we used the smooth. Bring in all those edges and look at what we get now. Oh my goodness. Now that's really awesome, right? We get this great crinkly, very, I don't know, it's almost kind of vintagey, metallic-y, maybe great for a masculine card. But I'm going to share another technique. And that is where I took the cardstock, and this is when it was smooth. And look at this. I ran this through an embossing folder. Isn't it gorgeous? It really makes quite a statement on a card. Again, I'm ready for whatever focal images I want. Perfect, perfect. On this card, you might be able to see this. I have got a little shine to my glasses here, my beer mugs. It kind of looks like they're actually glass on there. And this is a favorite technique of mine. I've been doing this one for a while. It's called, ready? Packing tape. Yep, I've got my stamped images right here. I've just stamped them here on a piece of scrap cardstock, nothing fancy. I'm going to bring in that packing tape. Now, this is about a 2-inch packing tape, also known as shipping tape. But you want this nice clear type of tape. We're going to put that right over our stamped images. You notice mine is a little long. That's fine. Let me show you what I'm going to do to take care of that. I'm actually just going to trim through my paper and through the tape. It's honestly easier than trying to just trim away the tape. We are going to remove any of that excess because I don't want this to get on my cutting plates, because you see I'm going to bring in a die, lay that right there on my images so I can die cut. And look at that. I now have shiny. And there's so many things you could make shiny. You could do your fruit. You could do flowers. You could do just about anything you want to have that nice shine. That can be done simply using a wonderful product called packing tape. So you've got this stamp set, you just love it, but doggone it, there's not designer series paper that goes along with it. You know what? You can create your own, and it's very, very simple to do. Let me show you how. I've got a piece of cardstock here. This is 4¼ by 5½. We're going to do some cutting on it later. And I'm going to start with my sentiment, just right there in the middle. Hello, sunshine. Now I'm going to come in with some starry sky and my first bathing suit right there. We'll stamp that one there. I'm going to come in now with my sweet sorbet and that cute little polka dot swimsuit. I love retro things, so this stamp set really speaks to me. I just love that. Now you notice my images aren't straight. They're not, I'm not going for perfection here. I want a very random look. I'm going to bring in a couple more sentiments, kind of stamping around. And you notice I have everything out as I'm working. This makes it kind of go a little bit easier to decide where your next image is going to go. And let me just say right now, this could be flowers. This could be polka dots, or, whatever image you want to use that you just fill in. It's such a great way to get your own custom-made designer series paper. And this one is just so fun. And you just kind of fill in the edges like I'm doing here. I'm just kind of filling things in with a little more of my sentiment. But I've still got a lot of white there. Look at this. I'm going to hit it a couple times here on the edges. We're going to be doing some cutting, so I don't have to go too crazy here, but I've got a lot of white space, a little more white space than I care for. So let me show you how we're going to fill that in. I'm going to take one of my blending brushes and a crushed curry ink pad, and I am just gently going to tap that blending brush on the pad and gently swirl it on my sentiments. Now look what I'm doing. I'm really filling in all that white space, so we're getting a really nice full colored background, full colored homemade designer series paper, right? This just adds a lot to the card, kind of covers up some of that white. But you know what? I'm going to show you one more fun way to step it up, and that is with a pencil eraser. This is one of my favorite stamps, you guys. I'm telling you, you can use a brand new pencil eraser. This one shouldn't be used. And I'm just going to fill in a little bit more by adding polka dots. Now, if I had maybe, oh, like a little tiny flower or just another small image or speckles or something, I could fill that in with anything. But look at that. Just like that, I've got my instant homemade designer series paper. Now, I do need to trim this down because it is a 4¼ by 5½. And if I want to use that on a card, I'm going to need to trim some off of this. You can trim however much you want. I'm going to say, why don't you go, or at least to start, maybe go 1/4 inch off the short side and then 1/4 inch off the longer side. And that way, when you go to put this onto a card, you've got a nice little border. Of course, decide which side you want to trim off of. And yeah, look at this. We just add that right there on a great mat of starry sky. This one, I wanted that nice little thin border around it. And then I'm going to add it to a sweet sorbet card base. It's ready for whatever focal image, ribbon, embellishments, whatever I want to do to it. But I now have some homemade designer series paper I can use any way I want. I love how it turned out. Hey, let me show you just one other card that I created with this technique. So this is a big card. This is a slimline fun fold card I did. Can you see I just use a bigger piece of cardstock stamped all over it? See those little orange flowers? Yep, that's how I got all that filled in. All right, this has happened to all of us, right? We were cutting and we got that fuzzy edge of our cardstock. Yeah, it's the fact that our blade on our cutter is getting dull. Guys, just like we have to change the blades in our razor, or our husbands change the blades in their razor. Well, we have to do the same thing to our cutting blades. But look at this hack. You can take a nail file. If you've got that rough edge, or you could use a nail buffer. These are great too. I've got several of these in my stamp room. Rub that gently across the cardstock. It's going to smooth away that rough edge. It's going to buy you some time until you can get a hold of a brand new cutting blade. Fabulous technique. So if you want to add a little interest to maybe a strip that's going to go onto a card, did you know that you could use your Simply Scored board and create some great backgrounds? Look at this. I'm going to score at every 1/4 inch down this piece of cardstock. And let me show you what this gets you. Oh, I hope you can see it there in the video. Yeah, it just gives some texture. Oh, look at this. I could flip it over and flip it around. And now I can give it, a great little kind of a crisscross, maybe gingham pattern. I'm just going to take that same thing, just going every 1/4 inch and doing a quick little score. You could do this on your paper trimmer as well. I'm a huge fan of the Simply Scored board. It definitely makes sure I get it perfect every time. And now look at this great little kind of background piece I have for my card. Let me show you another card where I did that. This one you can see I stamped first, and then I just added 3 simple score lines. And those were at every 1/8 inch. But what a look. What a great look. It just takes that card up that one little step. I think it's so pretty. Speaking of Simply Scored boards, have you been scoring and then, oh no, you just jumped the track of the scoreboard? Oh, it's happened to me a few times too. I've got a hack that's going to help you. Take your stylus tool from your Simply Scored board and just give it a nice little back rub. Not too rough, but you're almost going to use it like an eraser. You just kind of come along. You could use your bone folder too. That would work. But this technique really kind of helps take care of that. You might have to flip it over. Yes, you might see a little bit of it, but you know what? It might be just enough to save your cardstock. Not to worry if you've missed any of my hacks for today. I've got a free download for you with everything listed. You can find that over at simplysimplestamping.com, or the easy way, look down in the YouTube description. You're going to see a direct link that will take you to my blog post for today, and you can download that. Guys, there's also a place where you can order any of the supplies you need. And if you're looking for a Stamp It Up demonstrator, I'm your gal. So I hope you'll go check that out. All right, we've got a few more hacks, so let's finish up. All right, my next 2 tips are all for masculine cards. And masculine cards, we like a nice rough texture, right? I mean, our guys are rugged and we like a nice soft or rough texture to a piece of card. I'm going to take just this little piece of soft suede and I'm going to show you how to create that texture. And it's just simply using your scissors or your paper snips. You're going to open them up gently because they are sharp. And we're just going to run that cardstock and run our scissors down the edge. Look at that. Do you see that great rough edge? Go over it a few more times. If it starts to tear into your paper, well, even better, just makes it even more rugged, right? So now we're just simply going to do that. You're going to do that to all four sides of that piece of cardstock. Now you're going to get some fuzzies on your table, so be aware of that. This is what it looks like when it's all done. Isn't that great? Just a really great rough edge. Now I can just add whatever image I want to stamp there in the middle. You could do that. But you know, if you wanted that piece to be rugged as well, why not do that same technique there on your layering piece, whether it's a basic white or very vanilla? That's just a really great way to give an awesome rugged look to a piece of cardstock. Okay, this one is really fun. We've been talking about masculine cards. I'm going to teach you how to make your own suede paper or your own leather paper. So I've got a piece of crumb cake cardstock and I'm just going to start tearing the edges of this. So be sure to start with a bigger piece of cardstock than what you're going to need because we're going to be tearing up the edges. So you can see, tear it up. Don't get perfect about it. Remember, this is rough. This is got a lot of, again, that texture that we're going for and that roughness. So don't feel like things have to be perfect. We're just going to tear all of these edges and we're going to have something like this. Now, to give it this DIY suede or leather, I'm going to take my Stampin' Spritzer and I'm just going to spritz this with water. If you don't have a Stampin' Spritzer, you might just get your hands wet. That would probably be pretty good too. You see, I just want to make sure everything is nice and wet, not soaked, just wet. And now I'm going to crumble. Ooh, I'm going to take out my aggression on this little piece of paper. If your puppy has pooped on the floor too many times and you're not happy about it, take it out on this paper. It's perfect for this technique. You're just going to keep opening it, wadding it up, squishing it. Be careful. We don't want it to tear, but you really can be pretty rough with this. Now, when we smooth it out, look at that. You're already starting to see how it looks like leather, right? It really looks like leather. Now, remember, this paper is still wet, so you will want to let it dry. But now let me show you how to turn it into suede. So to make it look like suede, we're going to take the same, what was leather. Now I'm going to take my fingernail and just, or your bone folder, either one would work, and just kind of roughen that up. Do you see how the fibers of the paper are starting to lift? And now, oh my goodness, now it kind of looks like suede paper. I think this, first of all, it's a really fun technique because you kind of, I don't know, you get a little messy, but it really makes for a great masculine card. Now we want to give that some texture. So I'm going to come in with another blending brush and I've got a crumb cake ink pad. And look what happens when I run that blending brush over it. See how the ink is kind of starting to pick up some of those fibers and make them really stand out? I'm telling you, it looks like suede. And there's the other side with the leather. And I've done the same thing to that. But again, it makes it have a little more texture than have it just be flat, although this part is optional, sponging on the color. I think it looks really, really awesome, don't you? And this is going to be perfect to add to your next masculine card. I'm saving my favorite hack for last. This is how to create your own faux linen paper. This is really elegant. Guys, this is simply tissue paper like you would put in a gift package, right? Just simple tissue paper. You probably already have it laying around. We're going to do some stamping on this and create a really great look. But before I get started, one important tip. You do want to have grid paper underneath you because tissue paper is very thin and it will bleed through and we don't want that, right? So my stamp set for today is the Sending Smiles. I just thought these flowers would just look so pretty on a nice little linen card. So I'm going to take my shaded spruce ink pad and I'm going to ink up my leaves. I'm just going to stamp it right there in the middle. Now with my crushed curry, I'm going to come in and now we're going to add these flowers. There's a little stem there on it. That's just perfect for this. And we've got another little flower. We'll stamp that. Oh, do you see how it's bleeding through? Yep, I told you that's why we needed that grid paper. So that is very important. We're going to put our other little flower right there. Now let's add a little center to these. I've got some soft suede ink And in this stamp set are a couple of stamps there, so our flowers don't look a little on the bland side. Let's fill those in. All right, now it is very important we let this dry because this ink is so wet. Do you see how it bled through? This is one technique that I do. I just put it in between two pieces of paper, give it a little back rub, and can you see there's some of the ink that's come off. I really recommend you let this dry because you're going to see, yep, I got a little smudgy right there. That's going to happen sometimes, but what we're going to do is we're just going to wad up this paper. Now, this is nothing like our aluminum foil because this is a really delicate paper, so take it easy. Don't take your frustration out on this. And yeah, so now you can see there that we've got a nice finished product. Again, we've let it dry. I'm going to bring in my cardstock, just whatever color you want. I decided to go with some Berry Vanilla. And let me show you how you're going to adhere this down. You've got a couple options for adhering this. Now, you can use the Stampin' Up! Adhesive sheets. I love adhesive sheets. That could be a little pricey for this project. So I'm going to show you my little more affordable way, and that's my Tombow multi-purpose glue. So what I'm going to do here, ready? Here we go. I am going to start, and I'm going to use a small amount. I'm just going to swirl some glue on there. Make sure you're getting the edges really good, and you're going to want to work fast. But what we want to do is just spread that out. Oh, there it goes flying. Spread that glue out as much as you can all over. Again, trying really hard to get those edges. Now your finger's going to be pretty gluey after this. It's, so maybe just kind of avoid your paper here for just a minute because we want to go ahead and adhere our tissue paper right down. Of course, nice, you can see through it, right? You can see right where to go. So I'm going to avoid my gluey finger and I'm going to press that paper into place. Flip it over, give it a good back rub. We want to make sure that we've got that adhered down really, really well. It looks good except for my smudge. I'm going to have to find some way to fix that. But here's what we're going to do to put this together. I'm going to just take my scissors and I'm just going to trim away some of the excess. Remember how we did it with the aluminum foil? Kind of the same thing. I just want to get some of this excess out of my way because I don't need all that extra bulk. Now I'm going to come back in with my multi-purpose glue and I'm just going to put a thin line along the edges of my cardstock. And again, you saw how we wrapped that last one. We're going to wrap this one the exact same way. Just bring in all those edges and look at the gorgeous look that is left behind. Oh, it's so much prettier in person. So here's a card I created with the technique. And can you see mine? I gave it a little color in the background. Yeah, I used another blending brush. I'm going to show you how to do that if you want to kind of antique your linen paper. Maybe you want it to have that vintage look. I have got a crumb cake ink pad and a blending brush and just lightly sponge all around your focal image there. Yeah, just giving it just that nice, I feel like Bob Ross, just happy, just add that little happy on there. But it really is going to give it such a nice, pretty, vintagey look. I love that. And there you go, an easy peasy way to create your own faux linen cardstock. If you enjoyed today's video, would you give me a thumbs up on YouTube? I always appreciate that. And if you haven't subscribed, click that great big red subscribe button so YouTube can let you know whenever I have a brand new video here on my channel. Thanks for being here, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.